Got it. Got it. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. All right. Well, I think we're just about getting ready to go. I see we've got people coming on in. This is wonderful. So I would like to officially welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Kalia Garrido, and I head up events and marketing here at Great Data Minds. A little bit of information about Great Data Minds. If you don't know us already, we are a collective of passionate data activists, and we are on a mission to modernize the world of data. So we do this in one of two ways. The first is that we have our services arm. This is at Great Data Minds Innovation Labs. This is where we do strategic planning, education, and the deployment of critical data projects. And then we also have greatdataminds.com. Now, this is where we create content and host great events, just like the one that we're going to do today with transformational thought leaders. We focus on technologies. We have a lot of fun just keeping up to speed on everything that is happening in the ever-changing world of data and analytics. A little bit of housekeeping before we go. This is a webinar. Y'all know how a webinar works by now. So this means your cameras and your microphones are off, but we welcome you to use the chat, to use the Q&A, to get involved. We'll also hold a little bit of time at the end of the session for a more formal Q&A if you prefer to reserve your question until that time. And so today we are excited to host this amazing conversation. Now, I am personally here trying not to geek out too hard because Derrick Garrett definitely had a heavy hand in producing and engineering a lot of the music for A-list artists that I jammed out to back in my party days, like Casey and JoJo and Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston. And he is also the founder and CEO of Roundhouse Multimedia, which creates immersive music environments for luxury hotels and resorts such as Nickelodeon, the Grand Hyatt, Planet Hollywood, and many others. He also does the same thing for Fortune 500 corporations such as American Express, the Ford Motor Company, Viacom, and others. So we can see that Mr. Garrett clearly has a unique expertise and knowledge of using music to influence behavior. Most recently, Derrick has founded the Zoundz Music For Pets application. This is an app-based music solution that we're going to talk more about today. Now, I would never forget our very own, just as much of a legend in the world of data and analytics is our very own Mike Lampa. He is our Chief Data Officer here at GDM, and he's also a musician in his own right too. I'm just going to leave that right there. Yeah. So I'm going to pass the mic. Welcome you both so much. Thank you for being here today. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Thank you, Kalia. And Derrick, welcome, my friend. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Mike and Kalia. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, I am really, really excited about this dialogue today. I'll preface that with feeling incredibly blessed that we ended up crossing paths, Derrick. I'm looking forward to an ongoing fruitful friendship and relationship with you, sir. So
yeah, I would say, Mike, the feeling is definitely mutual. I'm really happy that our paths cross for sure.
Yeah,
very much mutual.
We're going to do some fun stuff. So, Derrick, let's get into this. Give us all a feel of the journey that you've gone through that culminated in the founding of Zoundz.
So I'll take you back to my music days. So I studied audio engineering in college and moved to New York. Back then you had a choice. It was either New York, LA, or Nashville. I chose New York. Had a pretty successful career in the 90s as a record producer and engineer, producing and/or engineering over 20 million records sold. And have a really good run. And then Napster hit, as we all know, and I think it was like 99 and early 2000, and the entire record industry was disrupted. The business model was turned upside down. And at that point, I transitioned into creating music branding for different brands. So it's kind of like transitioning from jingles into actual songs, right? And so that was the beginning, and we had a great run doing that. And that was actually the formation of Roundhouse back then. And Roundhouse still exists today, but what we do today is very different. We work with hotels and resorts, creating music architecture experiences. But at any rate, so yes, we had a great run at Roundhouse, creating music branding for years, and then the recession hit. And as we know, once the recession hit, things kind of, in 2007, things turned around, and and that business, definitely changed quite a bit. And that's when I started to focus on the hotels and resorts. And that was the second birth, if you will, of Roundhouse. And that's what we're doing today. And we're leading the way as providing music architecture for hotels and resorts throughout the Caribbean, Mexico, Central America, South America. And actually, we are about to expand to Europe. That's actually just all kick-started to happen and came to light over the past couple of weeks. So at any rate, about 3 years ago, a veterinarian friend was just kind of, venting and kind of just sharing offline the fact that it was becoming more and more difficult to examine dogs and cats in the examination room and environments because their stress levels were becoming just more and more high. It just, just like humans, they didn't want to be in that kind of cold environment, right? And he was saying, what made matters worse, the pet parents were blaming them, saying, well, my dog or my cat, they're fine at home. It's got to be on your side. It's not my cat or dog. And so it was just, he was just really frustrated. But that really, for me, it immediately triggered, I would say my 3 passion points, which would be, music, pets, and entrepreneurship. So I was like, wow, I know that music actually affects humans' behavior. So I was like, I'm sure there's studies or some sort of research that's already been conducted that's out there that supports the same for animals. And so I, started to do my research online, and sure enough, I found several peer-reviewed studies that showed there are specific parameters within music that actually has a common effect on both dogs and cats. However, what's common for cats couldn't be more opposite of what's common for dogs, just to put that out there. But still, music actually played a major role in calming both species. So once I found these studies, I'm like, wait a minute. And so, because of my audio engineering background, I was able to really understand, the lingo, if you will, such as, the frequencies, the instrumentation, the chord progressions, all that stuff, all of those parameters that make up, a song. That's what actually can have a common effect on dogs and cats. And so from there, I, went into my network and contacted some really known composers that I've worked with in the past, and I presented them with those, specific parameters and said, can you create, compose music, 3 to 4 tracks based on these parameters? I don't really care about the genre. I'm more concerned about you staying within these parameters. And so they did. And so it was like four composers that participated, and out of the 4, 2 didn't quite get it, but 2, they really got it. And so then I need an environment to be able to start to test this music. I need an environment with dogs and cats. And so I actually partnered with a shelter named Paws Crossed. And we started to play the music there. And over I would say over a 2-month period, we would go back and forth, making changes and getting feedback. And once we finally felt like we really honed in on what was working versus what was not working, I got an email from Jennifer, the CEO, saying, Derrick, I walk in some days and I forget that we have dogs in here. It's so quiet. And so that was enough for me to say, okay, this is a business. There's a potential business. So the next step was we at that point I wanted to speak with veterinarians and kind of present to them what their thoughts were on music and using as an alternative to meds to be able to calm pets in an examination environment. And spoke with several veterinarians across the country, and they all was very receptive. They knew the studies that we were that we were using, but they all asked one question pretty much across the board, and that was, well, what are the animal behaviors saying? And I'm like, we don't have an animal behaviors. So that I immediately knew that we needed to bring in an animal behaviorist to be able to work with us and just kind of guide and direct us and keep us as rooted in science as possible. And so we were really fortunate to be able to bring on Dr. Lisa Radoska, who's a certified animal behaviorist, board certified, and she's with us today. She came on as an advisor in the very beginning, and once we got her involved, that kind of accelerated things, and that was the birth Zoundz. And so when you look, today we have a B2B and B2C path in terms of our app platform.
Mm-hmm. So in your musical profession and career, I mean, you knew that space, right? So you pretty much knew how to navigate and flourish in that space, predominantly on gut instinct. Is that valid?
Yeah, well, that's a very, very good question, Mike. So, with Roundhouse, in terms of providing music architecture for hotels and resorts, I bootstrapped that from the ground up. And a lot of it was gut instinct, right? And so, a lot of my decisions was made on gut. And I have to say, I mean, we're leading the way today. So my gut did a pretty good job.
Mm-hmm.
However, with Zoundz, I quickly found out that just relying on the gut was not going to be enough to have a successful company.
Mm-hmm.
Just even starting with the app stores, Google and the Apple Store, being able to gather that data and pull it together in a way that is digestible, where we can understand it, we can present it to our board in a way that they can understand it, was not an easy task, which is how we ended up meeting you and great data minds, thank God. But I mean, it took, and I will say this, it's not like I realized the importance of data as it relates to Zoundz, in the very beginning. I mean, it took a while. I mean, we're probably a year in, and that's why, I was excited to do have this conversation with you, because hopefully, if there's others out there who will be listening, who are, creating some sort of app in a startup environment, they will not make the same mistake. Get your analytics and data in line from the beginning, because it's hugely important.
Well, I'll tell you what, that is music to my ears. So you started to touch on it a little bit, but can expand on what is the Zoundz business model?
So our business model, again, we have the B2B, which is pet professionals. So we're trying to, and we are getting Zoundz into veterinarian hospitals. That's one pet professional channel. We're now working with boarding and daycare, doggy daycare facilities. We're also working with groomers, and we're starting to have some really interesting conversations with some leading trainers. So those are the channels on the pet professional side. And then on the consumer side, it's a little bit different in terms of the app and how they're using it. So on the consumer side, it's based on 3 C's, which is calming, connecting, and conditioning. And we have 8 channels with tips that Dr. Radasta has created within, that the consumer can see within the app. It's kind of like giving them tips on how to use each channel in an effective way. Okay. So that's pretty much on the consumer side. So we have channels, for instance, a very popular channel on the consumer side would be Scary Sounds, where you could use it when you have loud noises in the house, thunderstorms, that sort of thing, where we're actually calming and masking, like calming the pet and masking the sound at the same time. So that's a very, very popular channel. And I would say second to that channel would be our travel time channel, which is very popular. But this takes us back to data and analytics, being able to track and know which channels are performing versus what channels are not performing, which allows us to be able to make, decisions based on data and not gut.
Yeah.
Which is hugely important.
So the B2C part is the pet owner, right?
Yes.
I mean, we're not selling it to Fido and Fifi, right?
Right, exactly.
Gotcha. Oh, that's awesome. So so in the process of testing Zoundz, give us a little feel on that. You mentioned some early studies and whatnot. Was there like some early certification programs you did, or?
So no, it was just working with the shelters and just actually receiving data from them on, which songs were working versus which songs are not working. So we may one day play songs that have, guitar, in them versus the following day or the following week playing the song with just, solo piano. And so we kind of played around with the instrumentation of the songs, and that's how we and they were able to see noticeably differences, with a guitar being in, which did not work very well, versus just, a piano being played in the lower register. So that's kind of how we went about determining what was working versus what was not working with getting the feedback through the shelter.
Yeah, gotcha. So as we start to build out the analytics, who are the target personas? Who are those analytic consumers, if you will?
Well, I mean, for starters, I would say, the analytics is hugely important for us to be able to make informed decisions. Because otherwise you're flying the aircraft blindly if you don't have proper data and analytics. So, first up would be us. And when I say us, that includes our board, that's hugely important for them. It's also important for our app development team to be able to make informed decisions, and us collectively in terms of, what user experiences need to be, changed. I may feel like, hey, we should add social media, but, is the data telling us that? And it's also important, as we are now really growing our partnership base, to be able to provide them with how, data on how the app is performing, what offerings are performing, option A or option B or option C. So I would say across all, pet professional channels. I mean, we need the data, as well as, just in many ways, or using data in many different ways internally. Gotcha.
All right. So what kind of data are we talking about here?
So for instance, on a small scale, I would say just being able to know which channels are being played the most. Because, if there's a channel that's not being played at all, then it's taking up real estate in the app. We may want to pull it and try another sort of conditioning or calming channel in that space. So that would be one way. The user experience overall within the app, it definitely could be used for that. And then, another very important piece is, as you have all these partnerships, you want to be able to see what partnerships are working, or not working, as you're investing time and resources into them. So those are the type of ways that, just on a small scale, and we can go, on the second phase, you get into, behavior, like, being able to know when, an individual is falling off the app, like, if they haven't used it a certain period of time, or where do they stop using it? That's sort of like the behavior of the actual consumer within the app. Being able to track that and have data, that sort of data is hugely important.
And the animals themselves, are there some data elements around the animals that the songs are being played to that you're aware of? Well, that you need to be aware of?
Well, yeah, I mean, at this point, we're, again, we wanted to, you want to keep the app as basic as possible in the beginning, just to make sure you have a solid foundation before you start building it out, which I've learned. Because in the beginning, I'm like, just throw everything in the pot, but I realized that wasn't the way to go. But what I would say is, it would be, it's ideal to be able to track just, how again, I think the user experience is hugely important. Being able to follow how an individual is using the app, I think is hugely important.
Yeah, no, I can see that, definitely, especially as you start to build your base, right?
Right, and just to complete the thought, in terms of, on the animal side, ultimately we would love, and we're, with the help of Great Data Minds, we're working towards being able to, have the pet parent enter certain information, such as the weight of the dog, the breed of the dog, maybe what sort of dog food they're eating, and be able to utilize that data to be able to help drive the consumer, the pet parent, to certain channels based on the information and the data that they are providing us, and eventually be able to have some sort of algorithm that's driving that. That's where we want, and you and I have been speaking about this for probably the past couple of months now. That's really where we want to be. But again, we first need to get the basic, data happening and being able to report that, and then move into more of the animal behavioral and that sort of stuff. Okay.
Right. Boy, as you're sharing that too, my mind's like, holy cow, there is a wealth of opportunity there. You mentioned, like what dog food did they, what shampoo are they using?
Right.
That starts to open up the door for the pet product manufacturers. Yeah.
Right.
So that's awesome.
Yes. And that's where, and I think, again, you and I've been speaking about it quite frequently, and I think that we can get there. Again, once we get this, the data foundation solid, I think we'll be able to get there.
Yeah. So it's not just for dogs then.
No.
Zoundz.
So Zoundz have a dedicated cat channel and a dedicated dog channel, because as I was saying earlier on, the dog and cat music could not be more opposite. In fact, if you played the cat music, Zoundz music for the dogs, it actually have a negative impact on the dog, because cats are actually calm by higher frequencies, which is total opposite of what's calming the dogs.
Interesting.
So it's actually an issue to play the cat music for dogs. And so we always get the question, well, what do we do, if we have both a cat and a dog? We recommend playing the dog music, because the cat, the dog music is not going to have a negative impact on them. And it's not going to calm them in the same way as their species specific music will, but it's not going to have an adverse effect, which is most important.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. So dogs don't like that techno music. Huh?
Not at all.
Well, I guess I align to the soul of the dog then, because I'm into minors and minor sevens and
right.
Yeah.
There you go. That's right.
Great. How about down the road? Are you thinking about expanding it into other kinds of species of animals?
Yes, very much so. That's another conversation that's actually starting to be accelerated. And the next logical species for us will be horses. Equine, yeah, that's our. In fact, we've already started the research and that sort of stuff. Yes.
That's cool. So how did you get to all the findings? We kind of touched on it before. There were some studies done. You got a behavioral scientist helping you with guidance and overall approach and whatnot. Are there other elements that led you to the findings that you're starting to realize now?
Yeah, a lot of it, Mike, is just learning by error. Trial by error, right? Whenever as a founder, whenever you launch, a startup, you think that we're gonna be up and running, we're gonna be killing it in 6 months.
Right.
It's never the case, and especially with this case, and it was very similar with Roundhouse, and that is, while there are, I guess a couple of companies that are out there who's doing something similar, not in quite the way that we're doing it, which means there's no real historical data for us to go on.
Right.
There's no real historical data for us to go on. There's no other way to do it, is to learn, but trial by error, right?
Right.
You learn. So I think we're in a great place today for sure. Are we where I thought we would be when we launched 2.5 years ago? No. But we're in a great place. And I think that the learning that we've gotten, before meeting you guys, you guys have been amazing, but the learning that we've gotten through, just going out there and doing it has been great.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about, learning by doing it.
Yeah, we so prescribe to that. It's a lot of people say fail fast, but fail really means fast attempts at incremental learning. Fast attempts at incremental learning.
Right.
It ain't a failure. I'm learning. Learning by doing. Right. So, all right. So, pop quiz for you. What's your enabling technology?
Ooh. What's our enabling technology?
You can throw out a lifeline.
I don't know. That's a tough one.
But let me help you out a little bit.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So we're using the Google Cloud Platform technologies for sure. You already are.
Well, I wasn't classifying that as technology, but if you want to, that's by hand. Hands down. Yeah, I don't know if that's where you're going in terms of being able to maneuver within it, within the app platform and I guess it's Firebase, which when it comes down to stuff, I'm a little lost, but that, by far, it is, I would say is definitely an enabler for us in a lot of ways. For sure.
Right. Yeah. And then being able to pull those data points off of the app stores is incredibly important.
Right, because you would think that, my thoughts in the very beginning was, you go in there and everything is laid out nice and pretty, and it's easy to understand and digest, but it's not easy. And then the other piece is especially like when you're presenting to your board members, they just want to hear the high level big picture. They don't want to hear, well, from Apple we have this, from Google we have this. They don't want to hear it fragmented like that. They just want you to present to them, this is what it is, this is how we're doing. And I could not believe how much of a challenge it was in the early days. It's still a challenge to be able to pull all this data together.
Yeah, you're in great company. There are so many companies we work with struggling with the same very same problem set. I've got disparate data, and I need to bring it together so that I can get better information, so I can take actionable insight.
Right.
Yeah. So on the analytics side, we're going to be using the GCP technologies, BigQuery, Google Analytics, the data services from GCP. And then on the visualization side, we're going to start with Data Studio, Google's Data Studio. Ultimately, though, as you want to start offering analytics out to your channel partners and your whole ecosystem, from your customers to the channels, we'll probably start considering technologies that enable this natural search experience to ask a question and get the visualization results back. So we'll probably lean into ThoughtSpot later on once we get our data foundation nailed down.
So I would say this: whoever's out there whoever's out there listening right now, again, I can't stress enough. And this is not a plug for Great Data Minds, regardless if it's Great Data Minds or whoever it may be. Get the help in the very beginning, because everything that Mike just said over the past 30 minutes, what do I know? But what I do know, I need that data. But the query, theory, and all that stuff, I may not know that. I might not be smart enough to know that, but I'm smart enough to know that the data is hugely important and we need it.
We're gonna have to develop a query dairy jingle. Right? All right. So for the folks listening in, do we have any kind of calls of action, Derrick, that we can share with them?
Yes. Let's see here. So in terms of our Facebook, you can go to Zoundz Music For Pets. That's also our handle for Instagram and LinkedIn. And then for our website, you can do Zoundz For Pets. We shortened it up a little bit, .com.
Great.
And I'm putting that into the chat too, so that everybody can see it there. And then I know you also have, we have a coupon code. We got a code from your team that's going to allow people a 14-day access to the application.
Oh, great.
Awesome.
Well, I'm gonna put that in the chat too.
But let's put that in the chat too.
Put that in the chat.
There you go.
I mean, I personally, this is all so fascinating. I love, first of all, it's hilarious. Anybody who is a dog or cat owner, anybody who lives on planet Earth, to know that cats like techno music and dogs don't, they like a totally different thing. That is just so perfect.
But
I mean,
I will say this, I'm sorry to interrupt. So I wouldn't say techno music, because we definitely pride ourselves on not using genres, because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
because they do not understand genres of music. Now, a song within a certain genre or any genre, if it falls within the parameters, then it can work. But
Yeah.
it's hit or miss, and that's one of the things that we focus on at Zoundz. We don't even like to use the word genre. We focus
High
on
frequency.
yes.
You said high
Or
frequency.
the parameters, like the chord progression. But it's okay. But I don't want people thinking that if there's techno music that's working for the cats. All the techno songs
For
can
my
work.
little kitty. It's awesome. But I mean, on the in the truth of it, like there are a lot of pets that I know personally that are anxious or like really have trouble, or like you mentioned during a thunderstorm. I know specifically, like, I mean, I have a horror story about what a dog did to himself during the 4th of July. Like it can be really traumatizing for them. So this is fantastic. And what you said about, like, I have 2 little cats and they have to go to the vet next week. There's already a level of anxiety that starts to pop up because you're like, oh my God, they're so good at home, but now it's, they're going to be traumatized, just like when we have to go do something super outside of your comfort zone too. So I think it's like hats off to the work that you're doing. I think it's really important.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. And I don't know if I mentioned, well, I don't think I did, but we also have the Harmony Project. And the Harmony Project is really dear to my heart. That, Zoundz, as far as I'm concerned, started in a shelter environment. And when you go into a shelter, I mean, it's not a great environment, right? I mean, it's cold. And so, the Harmony Project was founded on the idea of helping the pets, cats and dogs within the shelter environment to help calm them, help make the environment as pleasant for them as possible. And as a result of that, be able to be adopted sooner, right?
Yeah.
And then there's another piece where we are working with the shelters now. We have a Zoundz certification program that we're testing to make part of the adoption process, because we need to better educate the pet parents on not, and it's not, in the certification, it's not just about Zoundz, it's a checklist, but we're doing this to better educate the pet parents, the importance, educate them on the importance of that transition, from the shelter and into the home. Like that's it's really important to start off on the right foot. And so we want Zoundz to be able to play a role in that. And not to say that Zoundz is the only piece to the puzzle, but it's one of the pieces. And that is, from the moment that pet is in the car, when the pet parent comes to adopt that pet, dog or cat, Zoundz should be played in that car, because Zoundz is the only common thread between the shelter and that car. And our thinking, and it doesn't stop there, because the better that transition, the smoother that transition can be into the home for the pet parent and the pet, our ultimate hope and goal is for that pet not to have to return back to the shelter.
Yeah.
So we were really, so with the Zoundz, you can nominate a shelter. I'm sorry, with the Harmony Project, you can nominate a shelter anywhere in the country. As long as they have a 501c, we have a very short vetting process. And not only are we giving them Zoundz for free, we're also providing them with the speaker hardware as well. So for us, it's not just, us checking the corporate citizenship box. We really believe in the Harmony Project and helping what we consider to be underprivileged dogs and cats in shelters and rescues, by the way.
Well, I can't emphasize enough the cause that underpins your mission is so near and dear to our hearts. So what a great gift and service you're doing for all of society. So thank you so much for that, Derrick. Really appreciate you, sir.
Well, listen, you guys are contributing, because everything that you're doing to help us on the data side and the analytics, it's helping us towards that goal. So we appreciate everything that Great Data Minds, or everything that you guys are doing for us.
Yeah, group hug. Derrick, what a pleasure visiting with you again, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your vision and your business, and I hope people take advantage of the coupon code and try your product out.
Great. Thank you all so much. We really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
All right,
Have a
bye-bye.
good one. Bye.